Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Well, it's been just about a week since millions of women took to the streets of D.C. and all across the country to resist President Donald Trump. So we're going to kind of take a look at that march versus the pro-life march that's happening in D.C. today, as well as, I guess, some other places around the country will be having their marches tomorrow. But it's very interesting because some more information is coming out about the leaders of the Women's March. So we reported on the fact that Laura Sarsour, who's the executive director of the Arab American Association of New York, she was co-chair of the Women's March. She's also an advocate for Sharia law. She was meeting up with ex-Hamas guy. And, you know, she also is attacking a female genital mutilation survivor, saying, I would wish I could take her vagina away. She doesn't deserve to be a woman. So here's this really spectacular woman. But then it turns out we have another woman here, Donna Hylton. She was a convicted felon who took part in the kidnapping, torturing, sodomizing, and murder of a man. And they say that he's a gay man, but that wasn't really actually confirmed. It was just when they were being asked, you know, talked to by the police, why did you do the things you did to this man? They said, oh, well, he was a homo anyway. And just total, terrible, cold people. They kidnapped and held this man for ransom and were beating him, torturing him, taking like a vice to his testicles and things for almost 20 days. And then they had his body in a trunk and they tried to get ransom for this guy. So she was like 20 years old when this happened. But now it's all about, you know, we need to protect her rights and she's the victim and she's oppressed and everything. It's like, so she did come out and say though that she was a nasty woman. So,
well, there is
I guess she wasn't lying about that.
There's actually a case history. If you look at these Soros movements, some of the leaders are usually, if not previously tied into domestic violence or stuff of that nature, they end up being tied into it. So this is just another example of that. But you know, the comparisons that I wanted to make when talking about the March for Life that was today versus the anti-Trump march, the Women's March that happened after the inauguration, there were some differences that were pretty obvious. If you went up and you talked to the people at the March for Life and you had a camera and you said, hey, what are you here for? What are you doing? They actually could answer you. They actually had a reason for being there. And if you asked everybody there, they all had the same reason. That was solidarity, something that we did not have at the Women's March. They all had their different reasons for being there.
Yeah, they wouldn't even allow women to be there if they had opposing views. If you were vocally supportive of Trump or if you were pro-life, you weren't allowed to officially take part in the event. So they couldn't even, it was supposed to be a women's march, but they couldn't even, you know, be unified in that.
You also don't see any signs with degenerative words or offensive speech on them, just flat out curse words like we saw at the Women's March. And you won't see people attacking and assaulting reporters with either violent rhetoric or literally assaulting them with their hands. So this is just a difference that we saw between the Women's March and the March for Life. I actually have attended the March for Life twice in my life. Both times that I went, nearly 1 million people marched in Washington. It was peaceful. It was everybody there was at solidarity, and everybody knew what they were marching for. And then the turnout was amazing. The turnout was, again, amazing today. You can see the numbers. They're organized. They're marching in Washington just like they always do. So it was just amazing because the Women's March got all of this coverage as the Women's March, got all of these celebrities to come out and even vocally support it. The Women's
to blow up
March,
the White House,
of course, and then there was that stuff too. But you didn't get the same coverage for the March for Life. You didn't get the same celebrity support for the March for Life. Of course, Donald Trump announced his support. Mike Pence spoke.
Actually
Kellyanne
spoke
Conway
at the event. First time that's ever happened.
And then tomorrow in Austin, this Saturday, Infowars will actually be at the March for Life in Austin covering that. So we'll have some updates there. But I do expect there to be some protesters, but the marchers, I'm sure, will be good people.
Yeah, well, it'll definitely be really interesting to just see the kind of people that are attracted to both events, and just seeing the women at the Women's March last week just kind of capitulating to Islam and putting on the hijabs and letting these women,
They really are nasty
co-chair of the
women.
event, who's, a vocal supporter of Sharia law, which is, if you're a woman practicing that, you're already going to be a second or third class citizen.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It is nothing about women's equality.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because here were some other stories that I wanted to cover. Now, American and Islam relations are obviously in the fray right now, and Donald Trump's looming immigration and refugee policy is starting to bring some of this to the head. Here was a story out of St. Louis. Now, there was a meeting that went down from the CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and they're saying that many are fearing for their lives, their mosques, their careers. A group representing local Muslims is speaking out against President Trump's plan to ban refugees and block visitors from Muslim nations. He says that Trump's actions, which is designed to make America more safe, will actually make it more dangerous, saying that it adds to the terrorist understanding of the world, that the U.S. is at war with Islam, and that the U.S. Is undermining their own reputation around the world, basically, by doing this. And he fears that it could lead to homegrown terrorists, to which I'm sitting here saying, well, wait a second. If it's not a problem, then why are you fearful that it's going to lead to more terrorism?
Right.
So there obviously is some sort of a problem here.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is if you insult their prophet, it's like that's their duty. They have to attack you in that sense. They have to kill you.
And that's just, I guess, their religious text. But I don't believe that all Muslim people are like that. I think majority of them are peaceful people. But here's the problem.
That's exactly why General Mattis is going to be so great, because he specifically says, we have to be able to work with our allies in the Arab world. We have to be able to differentiate between billions of peaceful Muslims out there practicing the religion of Islam, and then we have this radical Islam, to be able to differentiate.
Now, here in Austin, Texas Muslims voiced concerns after inflammatory survey and form. Just over a week ago, an envelope marked urgent reply ASAP began going around to the mailboxes of Texas Muslim leaders. And it was an unusual document. They decided that it was highly inflammatory. It had 3 questions on it. The 3 questions were: if the president would support a pledge for religious freedom and safety from harm for former Muslims, would you support that? Another one asked if the Muslim Brotherhood should be declared a terrorist organization. And another one asked if they would support a Muslim reform movement which opposes violent jihad or violent Islamic extremism. Now, the person that wrote this was State Representative Kyle Biderman. And of course, he received a lot of flack for that. They were saying it was inflammatory, that he was only adding to the problem. And here's my issue. Now, you can say whether or not, you can have your own opinion on whether or not that was inflammatory. The New York Times covered this. But here's my thing. We have to have these conversations. You cannot just say, this offends me, I don't want to talk about it. You can also not deny that there is radical extremist terrorist attacks happening, just like there's radical liberals out there in the streets. I don't blame, I have liberal friends. They're not radical. They have a level head on their shoulder. They're just Democrats that like policies that are more liberal than a conservative policy.
People at the pro-life march that aren't going to go blow up a Planned Parenthood clinic. You have extremists kind of in all groups. We have to be able to address that, especially if they're actually physically blowing people up.
And here's the interesting, I went and I actually looked at the government policy on refugees, which you can find at the government's website. And basically the UN is in charge of the refugee program, and the UNHCR decides what refugees will go where. And it's funny because it mentions all the reason to be a refugee, but none of the reasons is for welfare purposes. That's something that's very important. Now, Donald Trump can kind of skirt around Congress or skirt around all of this by signing an executive order that would remove the United States from the UN, which, by the way, the United States welcomes 2/3 of the world's refugees here into the United States. That's more than any other country. I think Donald Trump could remove the United States from the UN. That would take the refugee process back into our own hands. But I think it's time for Muslim leaders, American leaders, to have this conversation, figure out the bottom of it. And Leanne, my final word in this is, I think the thing that would bring Muslims and Americans together is 9/11 truth. I think that will be a trump card. That is what can bring us all together if we find out the truth about what happened on 9/11 and everything else that has ensued.
Yeah, which is why I don't understand why there isn't a ban on people coming from the countries that actually attacked us on 9/11. That doesn't make sense to me. I guess it's only if America has bombed you, you can't come in. Well, Owen, thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in to the show tonight. We'll see you here Monday, 7 p.m. Central.
In case you haven't heard, Infowars has become the most influential media outlet in America. We're making freedom go viral. And now we are proud to announce a new weapon in the epic battle against the globalists. Infowars Prime, where you can watch live high-definition feeds of The Alex Jones Show, plus exclusive insider videos from the Infowars crew and behind-the-scenes action. Go to Infowars.com/app and download today. Infowars Prime is available right now for your iPhone or Android. You will have access to exclusive videos that you can't see anywhere else. And that means live coverage of events and breaking news on location as it happens. You can also take advantage of amazing deals from the Infowars store that are only available for Infowars Prime subscribers. That's Infowars Prime at Infowars.com/app. If you can hear my voice, you are the resistance.